Hello and welcome to Fluent Mindcast. I'm Emma, and it's great to have you with us.
And I'm Jake. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're doing something a little different, a really focused strategic deep dive.
That's right. We are on a mission today, and it's a critical one for anyone looking to advance their career. We're going to be analyzing the high-impact language you need for job interviews.
And hey, before we jump in, if you're finding these deep dives helpful, we'd really appreciate it if you took just a second to hit that like button, or even better, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep making this content for you.
It really does. So what we're looking at today are 10 very specific phrases. Think of them as verbal shortcuts. They're designed to help you sound not just fluent, but credible, organized, and really confident.
Exactly. We've pulled these from a great language learning resource, but our goal here isn't just to have you memorize them. We want to get into the psychology, the strategy behind why they work so well.
I think that's so important. Because if you're preparing for a big interview or even a client presentation, just knowing the vocabulary isn't enough, right?
Not even close. You need precision. Think about it. When you're in that high-pressure situation, your brain is doing a million things at once. It's trying to remember your career history, read the interviewer's body language.
And trying to form perfect English sentences on top of all that.
Right, and that's where people trip up. The cognitive load is just too high. You start saying, you
You
mamble.
describe this amazing thing you did, but it comes out sounding weak just because you couldn't find the right words in the moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So by preparing with these 10 phrases, you're essentially giving your brain a script, a framework. You offload all that grammatical work.
So your mind is free to focus on what really matters.
Exactly. The substance, the
Yeah.
stories you want to tell, your expertise,
Yeah.
and just connecting with the person across the table. That's the real payoff here.
Okay, so let's get started. We've broken this down into a few sections. The first three phrases are all about one thing: establishing your authority from the very first question. All right, phrase number one. This one is for when they ask you to explain something complex. You know, a big project, a past decision, anything with a lot of moving parts. The phrase is, "I'd be happy to walk you through it."
I love this one. It's so simple, but so powerful. The key word there is walk. It's not, I'll tell you about it or I'll try to explain.
Right, walk implies a journey, a guided tour.
It does. It signals that you're in control. You have the map. You know the terrain. You're not just about to dump a bunch of random facts on them. You're going to present a structured, easy-to-follow story.
And think about the alternative. The interviewer says, "Tell me about your time at that last company." And you go, okay, well, where do I start?
Oh, it's painful. You immediately sound lost and disorganized. You look like you're scrambling, but I'd be happy to walk you through it. It's just so calm and assertive.
It frames the entire exchange.
It really does. So, for example, you could say something like, when I joined the team, we were struggling with our data integrity. We had no single source of truth. I'd be happy to walk you through how I designed and implemented a new monitoring system from scratch.
See, that's so much stronger. It sets the stage perfectly. But I do have a question about that. Is there a risk of it sounding, I don't know, a bit formal or even condescending?
That's a great point. And it's all about strategic use. You would never use this for a simple question like, what software do you know? That would be weird.
Okay, yeah.
You save this for what I call the complexity threshold. If the explanation involves, say, 3 or more steps or some historical context,
Yeah.
that's your cue. If they're asking about a major project you led, it's perfect. If they ask about your hobbies, maybe not so much.
So it's like a verbal signpost that says, okay, we're going a little deeper now, but don't worry, I've got this organized for you.
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it.
Okay, so for everyone listening, let's just try saying this one out loud. Really focus on that confident, guiding tone. Ready? I'd be happy to walk you through it.
Nice. Okay, on to phrase number 2. Now, this one is a lifesaver. It's what you use when they ask you a question that requires a specific story, and your brain needs a second to find the perfect one. The phrase is, one example that comes to mind is,
This is the master of buying time while still sounding completely fluent. It's like a verbal buffer.
it is, and it does 2 brilliant things at once. First, it signals to the interviewer that an example is coming. And let's be clear, interviewers are trained to listen for concrete examples. They want data, not just claims.
Right. Show, don't tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the second thing it does, the real magic, is it gives your brain that critical 2 or 3 seconds to scan your entire career history when they say, tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult client.
You're trying to find a one story that makes you look good, has a positive outcome, and is actually relevant.
Yes. And that search takes a moment that can feel like a really long, awkward silence.
Oh, the worst.
So instead of filling that silence with, you just smoothly say, one example that comes to mind is, it keeps the conversation flowing. You look thoughtful, not stumped.
I also find it helps you be more concise. When you say one example, you're committing yourself to a single focused story. You're less likely to ramble and try to connect 3 different half examples.
That's a huge structural benefit, absolutely. It forces you to be disciplined in your storytelling. So you might say, one example that comes to mind is a project where we reduced our server costs by nearly 20% by migrating to a new cloud provider. It's clean, it's specific, and you introduced it flawlessly.
Okay, let's practice this one too. Think of it as a smooth opening to your best story. Repeat after me. One example that comes to mind is...
Perfect. So our third phrase for this section gets to the heart of what every single company is looking for. Proactivity. Ownership. The phrase is, I took the initiative to.
This one is so important. It's the difference between sounding like a passive employee versus a proactive leader. If you only talk about what you were told to do. My boss assigned me this report. You sound like, well, just an operator.
Stick your hands. But companies are built by people who don't wait to be told what to do. They're looking for problem solvers. People who see friction or inefficiency and just fix it. This phrase, I took the initiative, it immediately flags you as one of those people. It demonstrates leadership, even if you weren't officially a manager.
I wonder, though, how do you use this phrase without sounding like you're criticizing the way things were done before? Like, the old system was terrible, so I took the initiative to fix it. That could sound arrogant.
1,000%. That's a real danger. The key is how you frame what comes after the phrase. You never frame it as fixing someone else's mistake. You frame it as improving a process or responding to a new need.
Okay, so it's not about blame.
Never. So instead of, I fixed the old dumb spreadsheet, you say something like, I noticed our manual tracking system was leading to occasional errors and taking up a lot of the team's time. I took the initiative to build an automated dashboard, which freed up about 5 hours a week for everyone to focus on more strategic work.
Oh, that's so much better. You're the hero of efficiency, not the critic of the past.
Exactly. You're linking your proactivity directly to a positive business outcome. Every person listening right now should have at least 2 or 3 solid stories ready to go that start with this exact phrase.
Okay, so let's try it. I want you to think of a time, a real time, where you saw a problem and you solved it. You didn't wait for permission. Got it. Now, say the phrase with that feeling of ownership. I took the initiative to.
Excellent. So those first 3 phrases, they're your foundation. They set you up to present your past experience with confidence and control. Now, we're going to shift gears a little and talk about how to handle some of the trickier, more strategic parts of an interview.
Okay, let's dive into the next section. And we have to start with the most dreaded, classic interview question of all time. What is your greatest weakness?
Ugh, the question everyone hates. But phrase 4 is the perfect, modern, and frankly the only acceptable way to answer it. The phrase is, something I'm actively working on is.
Okay, first, can we please have a moment of silence for the worst possible answers to this question?
Yes. Let us officially retire. I'm a perfectionist. And its close cousin, I just work too hard. Every hiring manager on the planet has heard those a million times.
They see right through it. It sounds fake because it is fake.
It's completely disingenuous. But this phrase, something I'm actively working on, is brilliant because it reframes the whole concept. It's not a static weakness anymore. It's a dynamic area for growth.
It shows you have self-awareness, which is huge.
Yeah.
You know yourself, you own your limitations, and most importantly, you have a plan to improve. That screams growth mindset.
And here's the really strategic part. The weakness you choose to talk about cannot be a core requirement of the job. That is critical.
Oh, 100%. If you're interviewing to be a surgeon, you don't say, something I'm actively working on is my shaky hands.
Exactly. Or an accountant saying, yeah, I'm trying to get better with details. No, that's an instant disqualification.
Yeah.
You have to pick something that's like a secondary skill.
So what's a good example?
Delegation is a perfect one for high achievers. It's a real challenge for people who are used to doing everything themselves. So you could say, something I'm actively working on is delegating more effectively. In past roles, I had a tendency to handle all the critical tasks myself to guarantee quality. But I've learned that by investing more time in training my team up front, I can empower them to grow. and it frees me up to focus on higher level strategy.
That is such a great answer. It shows the past behavior, the learning moment, and the future benefit to the company. It's a total win.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's try this one. Think about a real area of professional growth for you. Now let's frame it positively.
Something I'm actively working on is,
Great. Now let's move on to something a bit more straightforward but equally important. Phrase 5 is about defining your professional identity with clarity. It is. In my previous role, I was responsible for.
this one seems so simple, but I've seen so many people get it wrong. They start rambling about their entire job description or who they reported to.
And the interviewer's eyes just glaze over. You have to remember, they might be talking to 10 people for this role. They need the headline, they need clarity, and they need it fast. This phrase gives them that.
It forces you to be concise, to distill your entire last job down to its most important, most impactful responsibilities.
Right. It's the difference between saying, well, I worked in the marketing department, and I helped with the email campaigns, and I sometimes posted on social media, which is weak.
Yeah, very weak.
Versus, in my previous role, I was responsible for developing and executing the company's entire digital marketing strategy across 3 platforms, which led to a 15% increase in lead generation.
Okay, totally different level of impact. The second one conveys ownership, scope, and results.
It's your professional headline. This is where you claim your biggest contributions. If you managed a budget, don't say you helped with the finances. Say you were responsible for managing a budget of X dollars.
Okay, so take a moment now. Think about your last role. What was the single most important thing you were responsible for? Got it. Let's say it with this phrase. In my previous role, I was responsible for.
Excellent. Now for our next phrase, number 6. This one is about showing how you work, because companies don't just hire people, they hire processes. The phrase is, my approach typically involves.
Ooh, I like this one. It makes you sound so methodical, so reliable. It tells the interviewer that your success isn't just luck.
It's not a fluke. It's repeatable. Anyone can get lucky once. But if you can articulate your system, your playbook, it tells the employer that you can solve their future problems too. It builds so much confidence.
The source material we're drawing from suggests a really powerful 3-part structure to use with this phrase. You start with analysis, then you form a hypothesis, and then you test and execute. Why is that structure so effective?
Because it demonstrates deep critical thinking. If you just jump to the action part, it can sound like you're impulsive. But starting with analysis shows you're careful, you're data-driven. You diagnose the problem before you try to solve it.
So you're not just reacting.
Exactly. You're systematically deconstructing the problem. For example, my approach to problem solving typically involves, first, a deep analysis to really understand the root cause. From there, I'll develop a couple of potential solutions as hypotheses, and finally, I'll implement the most promising one, making sure to track the results.
That sounds so professional, and it works for almost any job, whether you're a coder, a marketer, a project manager.
Any knowledge worker. It proves you have a reliable system. So for everyone listening, think about how you tackle a big new challenge. What are your steps? Now let's try to describe that using this phrase.
My approach typically involves, okay, this is great. We've covered how to talk about your past, how to handle a weakness question, and how to define your process. Now we're getting into the really interactive part of the interview, handling specific scenarios and asking smart questions.
All right, so let's talk about behavioral questions. Pretty much every modern interview is built around them. They're the tell me about a time when questions. And phrase 7 is the absolute perfect way to structure your answer. It is, a challenge I faced was, and here's how I handled it.
This is basically the famous STAR method situation, task, action, result packaged into one elegant sentence. It's so efficient.
It really is. For anyone who isn't familiar with STAR, it's just a storytelling framework. Situation and task set the scene. Action is what you specifically did, and result is the measurable outcome.
And this phrase just cuts right to the chase. A challenge I faced was, that's your situation and task right there.
Yep. And here's how I handled it. Perfectly tease up your action and result. The most important part, strategically, is that separation. You're drawing a clear line between the problem and your solution.
Why is that separation so important?
Because it controls the narrative. It makes the interviewer focus on your professional response, not on the drama of the problem itself. It shows maturity under pressure. You're saying, yes, there was a problem. Now let's focus on how I calmly and competently solved it.
That's a great point. You don't want them dwelling on the negative part of the story.
Exactly. Let's say they ask about a time you failed. You can say, A challenge I faced was a project that went over budget because of an unforeseen supply chain issue. And here's how I handled it. I immediately communicated the issue to stakeholders. We reprioritized the feature list to cut costs, and we still managed to deliver the core product on time. Client satisfaction actually went up because they appreciated the transparency.
Wow. So you acknowledge the failure, but the story is really about your incredible recovery. That's a masterclass.
That's the goal. So let's practice this one. Think about a tough situation you overcame. Feel that clear separation between the problem and your solution.
A challenge I faced was, and here's how I handled it.
Fantastic. Now for phrase 8. This one is about flipping the script. This is where you go from being the interviewee to being a discerning professional who is also evaluating them. The phrase is, I'd love to learn more about your expectations for this role.
I think some people worry about this one. They feel like asking about expectations makes them sound hesitant or like they're not fully committed.
Yeah, I've heard that concern. And it all comes down to delivery. If you say it nervously, maybe it sounds like that, but if you say it with confidence, it signals something completely different. It signals that you have standards.
You're not just desperate for any job, you're looking for the right fit.
Exactly. You're interviewing them too. It elevates you from an applicant to a potential partner. And the key, as our source material points out, is to get specific. Add a time frame.
Ooh, yes. So not just general expectations.
Right. A really powerful version is, this all sounds like a fantastic opportunity. I'd love to learn more about your expectations for the person in this role during the first, say, 90 days. What does a huge win look like in that time frame?
Oh, that's so good. It shows you're already thinking about how to deliver value from day one. It's about performance and results.
It's a question you ask near the end of the interview, once you've already built that rapport and established your credibility. It's a power move, but a very professional one.
Okay, let's practice this one. Imagine you're nearing the end of a great interview. Feel that sense of professional curiosity. I'd love to learn more about your expectations for this role.
Perfect. Okay, last phrase in this section, phrase 9. This one is your secret weapon against misunderstanding and a huge sign of a careful, meticulous professional. It is. Could you clarify what you mean by?
I'm so glad we're covering this one. So many people are terrified of asking for clarification. They think it makes them look stupid or like they weren't listening.
It's the exact opposite. Think about it. What's riskier? Admitting you need more detail for a second, or spending 20 minutes giving a brilliant answer to the wrong question.
The second one for sure.
Disasters in the professional world happen when people pretend to understand things they don't. Asking for clarification shows you value precision. It shows you want to avoid risk. It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
This is especially true in technical fields where jargon can mean so many different things.
Let's use the example from our source. The word pipeline. That word is a nightmare of ambiguity. In a software company, if the interviewer says, how would you optimize the pipeline? What do they mean?
Could be the sales pipeline, like managing leads, or it could be the CI/CD pipeline, which is about software deployment. Two completely different worlds.
Exactly. So asking for clarification isn't saying, I don't know what a pipeline is. It's saying, I know this term has multiple highly specific meanings, and I need to know which one we're discussing so I can give you a relevant, intelligent answer.
So you would actually repeat the term back to them.
Yes, that's the best way to do it. That's a great question. Could you clarify what you mean by optimizing the pipeline? Are we talking about improving the efficiency of our code deployment or increasing the conversion rate in our sales funnel? That shows you know both. It makes you look even smarter.
That's brilliant. Okay, let's practice this. Feel the confidence of someone who values precision over guesswork. Could you clarify what you mean by?
Fantastic. So now we have the tools for the entire middle of the interview. We can handle any scenario, any tricky question.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the final critical moment, the close.
All right, we've made it to the end of the interview. You've done an amazing job. You've used all these great phrases, and now you have to stick the landing. You have to end on a high note. That's where phrase 10 comes in. It's your definitive, confident closing statement. Based on what you've shared, I'm confident I'd be a strong fit.
Please, everyone listening, promise me you will avoid the weak, awkward ending. So, yeah, I guess that's all my questions. It just fizzles out. It leaves a terrible final impression.
It really does. All your hard work in the interview can be undone by a weak closing.
But this phrase is so powerful. And the magic is in that first part. Based on what you've shared, that is proof that you were listening intently to everything they said.
It's not just generic confidence, it's targeted confidence. You're connecting your skills directly back to the specific needs they described during the conversation.
It's the ultimate synthesis. You're telling them, I've heard your problems, I understand your goals, and I am the solution. It's a final, powerful reassurance.
So a great example might be, well, thank you so much for your time. Based on what you've shared about the need to scale the team and enter new markets, I'm confident my experience makes me a very strong fit.
And you say it with a smile, with strong eye contact. And that is the final, memorable, positive impression you leave them with. It's the perfect way to land the plane, as they say.
Let's all practice this final, powerful statement. I want you to say it with total conviction. You've earned it. Based on what you've shared, I'm confident I'd be a strong fit.
Excellent. Now, having all 10 phrases is one thing, but as the source material really emphasizes, the true skill is in using them together, dynamically.
Right. This is where we move from just knowing the phrases to actually being able to use them under pressure. This is where passive knowledge becomes an active skill.
So let's do a quick role play. Let's imagine I'm the interviewer. And my question for you, the candidate, is, tell me about a major project you led that involved significant unforeseen challenges. That's a complex, multi-part question.
Okay, so a great candidate wouldn't just launch into a story. They'd start by structuring their answer. They might combine phrase 5 and phrase 1.
How would that sound?
It might sound like this. Certainly. In my previous role, I was responsible for the international launch of our flagship product. That project involves some significant complexities, and I'd be happy to walk you through how we navigated a major unforeseen regulatory issue.
Okay, I'm already hooked. You've established your authority, you've given me a teaser of the problem, and you've promised me a structured story. Perfect start. What comes next?
Next, you need to tell the actual story. This is where you'd weave in phrase 2 and phrase 7.
Right. Give me the specifics.
So you could continue with, one example that comes to mind is when we were 6 weeks from launch and a new data privacy law was passed in our target market. That was a huge challenge we faced. And here's how I handled it. I immediately put together a task force with our legal, engineering, and marketing teams.
Great. You're using the framework perfectly. And to really seal the deal, you could even add phrase 6 to show your methodology.
Exactly. You could finish by saying, my approach in a crisis typically involves rapid scenario planning, so we quickly built 3 different compliance models and chose the one that protected user data while still allowing us to launch on schedule.
And boom, that's it. In one answer, you've used phrase 5, phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 7, and phrase 6. You've shown authority, storytelling, maturity, and a repeatable process. That is an A-plus answer.
And that's the key takeaway for everyone listening. You have to practice combining these. Take the common interview questions and build answers that use at least 2 or 3 of these phrases. That's how they become second nature.
It's muscle memory. You drill them so you don't have to think in the moment. Let's just quickly recap the strategic groups so you know which tool to grab for which type of question.
Good idea. So, phrases 1 through 3, walk you through it, one example, and took the initiative. That's your toolkit for framing your past and establishing authority.
Right. Then you have phrases 4 through 6, actively working on, responsible for, and my approach involves. That's all about defining your competence and professional maturity.
And finally, phrases 7 through 10 challenge I faced, clarify what you mean, expectations for this role, and confident I'd be a strong fit. That is your toolkit for strategic engagement and a powerful close.
By internalizing these 10 frameworks, you fundamentally change the game. You stop worrying about your English and you start focusing on what really matters, presenting yourself as the confident, competent professional that you are.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We have dissected 10 phrases that are so much more than just vocabulary. They are a complete framework for communicating with clarity and confidence when the stakes are high.
Absolutely. This is your structure for telling your professional story in the most compelling way possible. Remember, you're not just an applicant hoping for a job. You're a professional partner evaluating an opportunity.
You've learned how to frame your history, how to handle difficult questions with real grace, and how to close the conversation with strength.
And for you, the learner, just by being here and doing this work, you've already taken the hardest step. This kind of strategic preparation is what truly sets top candidates apart. So keep practicing.
And as you do practice, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to take with you. We've spent this whole time talking about the structure of your answers. But what if you started analyzing the structure of the interviewer's questions?
Ooh, I love that. Because every question they ask comes from a hidden need, a pain point the business is feeling.
Exactly. If they ask a lot of questions about how you handle conflict, what does that tell you? It probably tells you the team has some friction.
And that's your cue to use a phrase about collaboration, or maybe even phrase 4, talking about how you're actively working on your communication skills.
Or if they keep asking about tight deadlines and changing priorities, they're worried about reliability. That's a giant flashing sign to use phrase 6. My approach typically involves and describe your amazing organizational system.
You start to see their questions not as tests, but as clues. Clues to the exact problem they need to solve. And you could use your 10 phrases as the perfect tailored solutions to those problems.
Master that, and you're no longer just answering questions, you're having a strategic business conversation.
And that is a conversation you are now fully equipped to lead.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We wish you nothing but clarity and confidence in your next big interview.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.